The hour was slate-gray and wind-bitten when the rider arrived at Winterfell's gate. A lone horse, ribby and lather-foamed, bore a small bundle bound in crimson silk. No flag flew from the saddle, no escort rode behind. The guards hailed the stranger, but the visitor toppled from the stirrups before he could answer. By the time Sir Roderick and Maester Luwin knelt beside him, he was breathing only in ragged sips. "From Dragonstone," the rider rasped, fingers clutching Luwin's sleeve. "For Lord Stark. The babe. Her name is Daenerys. Protect her." The sentence died with him. So began the trouble. Catelyn Stark stood in the dim light of the solar, arms folded as Eddard laid the crimson-wrapped infant upon the carved weirwood cradle that had once held Robb. Bran cooed nearby in Septa Mordane's arms. Sensing excitement in the air, Robb tugged at the hem of Catelyn's skirts, whisper asking whether the new baby was his to play with. Outside, snow hissed against arrow slits, but Ned's features were set like iron warmed over a slow flame. "The last dragon," he said quietly. "Viserys escaped across the narrow sea with Sir Willem Darry, but Daenerys was too small. The ship meant for her was taken by storms. Sir Willem's men believe she drowned. The truth must remain buried." "Mr. Montio." Catelyn's brows knit. "Robert will never suffer a Targaryen babe to live. He crushed the loyalists in the south to be rid of them. And Robert will never learn." Ned's eyes lifted to hers, gray as storm skies over the neck. "We swore vows, Cat. I to protect the innocent, you to keep my hearth. The girl's life hangs upon our silence." "Now." For a moment, Catelyn tasted the old sourness that lingered whenever she thought of Jon Snow. Another child of mystery, another burden Ned had laid at her feet without counsel. But she met her husband's gaze and inhaled. "Place her among our own then, but a silver-haired babe among Northmen will invite talk. We shall say she is a fosterling from House Florrick in the Neck, minor cousins to Lord Reed. A sickly thing at birth, but one that flourishes in Winterfell's air." Ned stroked a downy wisp of hair upon the girl's temple. "In time, she will be as much a wolf as any of ours." Catelyn's answering smile felt brittle, but she lowered a finger to the infant's tiny fist all the same. The babe opened sea-bright eyes and clutched tight. Heat coursed through Catelyn's arm, inexplicable warmth, as though some small flame lived beneath that pale skin. She swallowed. "Very well, but we must dye her hair, and pray that no one thinks to count the dragons." Years uncoiled like banners in a spring breeze. The babe grew into a girl with milk-bright hair darkened each fortnight by Septa Mordane's tinctures of walnut and ash. The potion left a hint of bronze in the curls, a shade remarked upon as pretty by visiting bannermen and dismissed by Maester Luwin as Southron in hue. She answered to the name Dany Florrick, though in private Catelyn would sometimes catch her tracing the air as though writing letters unseen, and suspected the child dreamt of another name. Robb claimed Daenerys as shadow and shield. Together they teethed on carved wolf-bone toys, toppled towers of smooth-run stones in the godswood, and learned their letters side by side at the great oaken table. Arya, wildfire in leather boots, adored Dany for her soft laugh and soft heart, and taught her to loose arrows at straw men until fingers blistered. Bran chased after them. Rickon lisped her name as Nire. Jon Snow, quiet as moonlit frost, watched from the gallery shadows, drawn and wary in equal measure. It was Catelyn who kept the balances. She praised Dany's diligent stitches, scolded Arya's mud-flecked boots, urged Robb to patience when his foster sister's tears flowed after a sparring bruise. Some nights Catelyn would wake in cold dread, certain she had heard wings beating beneath the rafters or felt a roar of unseen fire warming the bedchamber walls. She would sit until dawn, pulse drumming, watching the sleeping children for signs of smoke. At 10, Dany stood before the heart tree, snowflakes melting in the white blonde fringe. She no longer bothered to die unless a visitor approached. Ned had yielded on that point. The North was remote enough, he argued, and the Tyrells and Lannisters seldom sent spies this far. Still, Catelyn insisted the child keep her hood up when riders from White Harbor or Barrowton came to pay fealty. Jon knelt across from her now, drawing a line in the snow with the iron tip of a practiced sword. "You favor Robb too much in your stance," he advised, soft-voiced. "Your shoulder leads." "I favor no one," Dany retorted, lifting her own wooden blade. "I favor myself." She attacked. Quick, graceful, faster than Jon expected. He parried 1, 2 blows, but the third slipped under his guard to wrap his knuckles. Jon hissed, then grinned. "Well struck, little dragon." She froze, gray-violet eyes widening. Jon's smile guttered. In the hush of falling snow, he realized the word had escaped him as natural as breath. They had all used it in whispers. Little dragon, silver sister, the words a harmless jest hidden beneath fur cloaks. But something in her stillness said the jest cut deeper than any sword. "What am I, truly?" she asked. Jon's mouth worked. "You're our sister, yet different." She flipped the blade, hilt downward, and stared at its worn grain. "I do not look as Arya does. I do not look as you do. When I dream, I see heat, wings. I wake thirsty as if my blood were ash." Her gaze lifted, fierce despite the tremble about her mouth. "Tell me, Jon. I will not break." He opened his lips to answer, but footsteps crunched behind them. Catelyn emerged, wool cloak swirling crimson against the white. "Inside, both of you." The south wind rises. A storm's on its heels. "Nay!" Under her mother's stare, Dany thrust the wooden sword into the drift and obeyed. Jon lingered a half-second longer, eyes pleading question. But Catelyn shook her head. He followed silently. Only when the courtyard emptied did Catelyn press a hand to the godswood's gnarled trunk for steadiness. The storm was indeed coming, one of wind and snow, and perhaps of blood. Secrets, he feared, never stayed buried beneath ice forever. The year Dany flowered at 13, a raven blacker than a moonless frost arrived from King's Landing. Queen Cersei would accompany King Robert, her son Joffrey, and the royal entourage north to Winterfell. The king wished to hunt in the Wolfswood and feast beneath Ned's roof before naming his new hand, an honor Catelyn suspected Robert would foist upon her husband. Ned's jaw knotted as he burned the letter in the brazier. "We must be ready." Catelyn's thoughts leapt to silver hair, purple eyes, and the tantrums that might spill such secrets in royal halls. "We are not ready. You must refuse." "I cannot." The letter's ashes swirled up the chimney, sparks dying in the draught. "Robert was my brother in all but blood. Refusal would wound him, and worse, excite his suspicion. So we risk our daughter instead." The word slipped out before she could quell it. Daughter. 6 children bore her name and blood, yet the 7th, born of dragonfire, now claimed a place just as fierce. "She is a Stark in all ways that matter," Ned said. "If we believe it, live it, Robert will see only what we show him." But his gaze lingered on the dying embers, and Catelyn heard the doubt that scratched beneath his calm. Preparations swallowed the next fortnight. Septim Ordain coaxed Dany into a simple dirndl of pale green to flatter her eyes. Arya protested at being forced into silks, Robb drilled the guard to perfection, and Catelyn scoured every ledger to ensure the feast lacked none of the South's delicacies. Maester Luwin pressed Catelyn to let him restore Dany's walnut dye, but Catelyn demurred. Dye could run, stain a collar, or be smelled in close quarters. Better to trust the lie than to cloak it in cheap disguise. Yet on the morning the royal host thundered through the gate, Catelyn's heart bargained prayers with every beat. Let Robert see only a Stark girl. Let the queen's green eyes slide past silver. Let secrets sleep. Robert Baratheon descended from his warhorse in a clash of gilded plate and roaring laughter. He embraced Ned as if years were minutes, slapped Robb on the shoulder, joked bodily with Theon Greyjoy, and drank a skin of mead before his boots left the mud. His gaze passed over the assembled children, Bran hopping in excitement, Rickon mouth agape, Arya scowling through her braid, and settled at last on Daenerys. Catelyn felt the world balance upon a knife's point. "Well now," Robert said, brows rising. "And who is this spring blossom?" Ned stepped forward. "My ward, Daenerys Florrick of the neck. Florrick? Robert scratched beneath his beard. Never met the father, but I envy him the daughter. He winked as though sharing a jest with the girl herself. Beauty enough to shame the South. Dany curtsied, graceful, unafraid. Winterfell's snows breed strong flowers, your grace. Robert barked approval, slapped Ned again, and turned to demand where the ale had got to. Only then did Catelyn let her lungs fill. She felt Ned's gloved fingers graze her own, fleeting reassurance, and she clasped them hard. Yet, as the court swept inside, Catelyn noticed the queen linger. Cersei's emerald eyes narrowed, fixed upon Dany's hair. A smile like a cat's crept across her painted lips before she followed her husband. That night, torches painted the great hall in hearth-red gold. Harps plucked, singers sang, boars crackled, and wine poured. Robert drank enough for 10 men, roaring tales of dragon skulls now rotting in the dungeons of the Red Keep. Arya slipped silverware to needle practice behind the dais. Bran balanced upon a chair to glimpse the king, and Rickon fell asleep in Shaggy Dog's black fur. Daenerys danced. Robb, tall and handsome in direwolf-embroidered doublet, led her first, spinning her across the rushes. Jory Castle followed. Even Sir Jaime Lannister requested a turn, his smile gleaming and eyes too sharp by half. When the music slowed, Jon appeared beside her with a goblet of watered wine. "Your cheeks are aflame," he murmured, offering the cup. She drank, grateful. "It feels as though every eye in the realm is upon me." "Not every eye," Jon said, but his gaze flicked to the high table where Queen Cersei conversed with Maester Luwin, lips close to the maester's ear. Just the ones that matter. At that moment, a hush rippled through the hall. King Robert stood, swaying slightly, goblet raised. "To the north," he boomed. "And to the fair maid whose grace has melted even these frozen stones." The toast roared back. Daenerys dipped her head, but Catelyn saw her palms tremble against her skirts. Flames from the candelabra caught in the silver of her hair like tongues of gold. Too bright, Cat thought, too bright. In the hours before dawn, as revelry faded to snores and guttering candles, Catelyn paced the bedchamber until Ned roused. He sat up, hair shadowing his face. "Can't sleep." Cersei Lannister watched our girl as a hawk watches a field mouse. "I fear she smells blood." "Cersei smells advantage," Ned corrected. "If she suspects, she will weigh whether discovery profits her more than silence. Silence profits her not at all. Proof of a Targaryen living would rouse Robert's wrath against us. Then sell, and rouse viceroys across the sea. Some would cheer civil war, others would burn." Ned rose, drawing his cloak. "I shall speak with Robert at dawn. I'll ask leave to foster Dany at White Harbor for a season, citing her delicate health. A royal progress south is no place for a northern flower unused to heat." His lips twisted at the half-truth. "With luck, Robert will forget her by the morrow." Catelyn caught his hand. "And if Cersei whispers in his ear before you can, then we must be ready to flee." The words fell heavy between them. Flee Winterfell. Abandon the north? The notion chilled her more than any wind. But she nodded, for there was nothing else to do. Dany lay awake in her chambers, the dying fire painting dragon shapes upon the ceiling. Jon's goblet sat untouched on her trunk. The watered wine turned to dregs. She heard the castle settling, groans of timber, moans of wind, the distant clack of direwolf claws on flagstones. And above it all, faint but pulsing, a sound like the rustle of wings. When she closed her eyes, she saw a red door and a lemon tree and a sea that stretched like hammered bronze under sun. But when she opened them, she saw Winterfell stone, and it was colder still. She rose, padded barefoot to the arrow slit, and pressed her palm to the icy sill. Snow whispered against her skin. Across the courtyard the gods' wood loomed, heart tree ruddy in moonlight. She thought of fire and frost, of wolves and dragons, and wondered which blood beat louder in her veins. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. She turned to find Queen Cersei standing in the doorway, a candle guttering in gloved fingers. "Forgive the hour," the queen purred. "I could not sleep for curiosity." Her gaze swept the girl from hair to heel. I wished a closer look at the North's loveliest flower. Dany swallowed, inclining her head. Your grace honors me. Cersei drifted closer, silk whispering over rushes. Tell me, child, does the cold not chap such delicate skin? Perhaps the heat of King's Landing would suit you better. Or elsewhere. Across the sea, perhaps. Dany felt her pulse race. I have never seen the sea. No. The Queen's smile deepened. Yet I sense it calls to you. She reached, and for an instant, Dany thought Cersei would touch her cheek. Instead, the Queen pinched a lock of silver pale hair between thumb and forefinger. Such a rare shade. Buried embers of Valyria, is it not? Dany's breath caught. The castle seemed to fade until only that touch remained. She forced her voice steady. My mother's, or so I've been told. Ah. Cersei's nails grazed scalp, a flicker of pain. Then she released the strand and stepped back. I had a friend as a girl, hair like sunlight on snow. She died, alas, in a fall. Such fragile creatures, girls. You must be careful. Candle flame danced, chasing shadows over her face. Good night, Daenerys. Alone again, Dany stared until the doorway emptied of light. She clutched the strand the Queen had touched, as though to feel if some mark remained. Outside, wind howled like a wounded beast. She did not sleep again that night. At dawn's gray edge, Ned found Robert alone in the old crypts, head bowed before the statue of Lyanna. But the king's breath misted in the chill, grief hanging about him like chainmail heavy with rust. Ned spoke softly of fevers and delicate constitutions, of southern progress and Maester Luwin's cautions. Robert listened, then grunted a brusque assent. Leave the girl, she'll weather it. But his eyes never left Lyanna's stone face, and Ned recognized defeat in the slump of Robert's shoulders. He pressed no further. Ascending the steps, he nearly collided with Cersei Lannister. She inclined her head, golden hair agleam even in the crypt's gloom. Lord Stark, she murmured. I hope you found solace with old ghosts. Ned stiffened. Ghosts have their place, my lady. They teach the living caution. Indeed. Her smile was small and sharp. Do take care of your wards, Lord Stark. The realm can be an unkind place for orphans. She passed him, silk brushing stone. Ned emerged into weak sunlight with a knot twisting in his gut. He found Catelyn waiting at the top stair. One glance at her face told him she had divined as much from the Queen's eyes as he had. We leave at week's end, Ned said. There is no postponing. Catelyn nodded, though her lips whitened. Then we must prepare her for flight. Or for war, Ned said, and the wind carried the words into the pine tops where they clashed like distant swords. 2 days later, ravens screamed over Winterfell. Bran had climbed the first keep and fallen, a shattered doll upon the courtyard stones. Catelyn's wail keened through hall and yard, and the castle plunged into chaos. Maester Luwin, pale and shaking, forbade all but family from Bran's bedside as the boy clung to life. Amid the grief, Ned confronted the Queen. He spoke of command and custody, of proof and peril. Yet in the shadow of Bran's broken body, Robert refused accusations. It was an accident, Ned. The boy climbed too high. So the king rode south, leaving Winterfell to lick its wounds. Ned would follow, taking his daughters as wards to the capital. Robb would remain to rule in his father's stead. And Daenerys would travel with Ned, for the Queen watched too closely to let the silver girl vanish now. Catelyn saw it in Cersei's backward glance, a promise laced with venom. That night, Catelyn knelt beside Bran's still form, stroking limp fingers. Outside the shutters, snow fell heavy. Dany entered quietly, a candle trembling in her grasp. She set it on the sill and took Catelyn's free hand. I will keep him in my prayers, Dany whispered. And when I go south, I will pray to every god and stranger for his waking. Catelyn studied the girl. Silver hair spilled like moonlight over her shift. Fear lived behind those violet eyes, but resolve too, steel hammered in cold fire. Catelyn drew her into an embrace. The south is full of daggers. Trust your father. Guard your heart. Now. I will. Dany pulled back, and in her gaze Catelyn thought she glimpsed embers, small, hungry, aching to burn. I will protect our family, Lady Stark. I swear it. Wolves and dragons together. Catelyn kissed her brow. Then, let the South beware. Dawn of departure came leaden and raw. Ned's party mustered in the yard. Household guard Maester Luwin for Bran. Arya weeping silent fury. Sansa clutching her dreams of a golden court. Daenerys wrapped in wolf fur cloak, clasped by a silver brooch wrought in the shape of a deer wolf's head. Snowflakes clung to her lashes, melting into pale lashes as though even winter could not hold her. Catelyn embraced each child in turn. Sansa's sweet perfume, Arya's stubborn bones, the hush of Daenerys' breath at her ear. Be brave, she murmured. Be wise. And come home, Robb added, voice thick beside her. They watched as the column filed through Winterfell's gate, banners furled against the wind. Jon Snow rode last, booted feet brushing muddy ruts. He turned once, eyes meeting Robb's, Catelyn's, Daenerys, though Daenerys did not look back, staring instead at the road ahead. Then the guards closed ranks, and the South swallowed them. The Raven arrived 3 nights later, black wings beating against the rookery panes. Maester Luwin's hands shook as he broke the seal. Catelyn read the words by hearthlight, heart hammering. Arrived, at Moat Cailin. Queen's men prayed. Dany unbowed. We'll ride again from King's Landing. Me. Catelyn exhaled relief, but Bran still slept, and in his silence Catelyn counted every danger stalking her children's path. She stared at the candle's flame, remembering the warmth that had flooded her hand when baby Daenerys clutched her finger. She prayed that fire still burned within the girl, burned fierce enough to keep the wolves she loved from freezing, and the dragons who hunted her from drawing near. Outside, snow fell unceasing, blanketing Winterfell in white. Somewhere beyond the neck, the summer road stretched south toward heat, toward secrets, daggers, and a throne forged of swords. Upon it rode a silver girl in wolfskin, carrying the North's hopes like a smoldering coal cupped between bare palms. The summer road unfurled beneath a sky the color of unfinished steel. Ned's column moved at a measured pace, never hurried enough to betray fear, never slow enough to invite ambush. The wagons creaked, the horses snorted steam, and the banners of the direwolf fluttered only when the wind remembered to breathe. Each dawn they broke camp to the crackle of frost being shattered from tent ropes, and each dusk they rebuilt walls of canvas against the chill that drifted down from the distant wall. Daenerys rode near the van, flanked by Jory Castle and Sir Roderick. Her cloak's wolf-head brooch had tarnished to a dull pewter, but she wore it proudly, refusing any warmer furs lest the honor of Winterfell seem borrowed. The murmurs of the guard still followed her, dragonling, stormborn, little frostworm, but the words had become a kind of armor. She would not hide from names, not anymore. On the 6th morning, the party crossed into the next southern marshland, where green water lapped at roots like black tongues. The reeds appeared, slim youths with spears carved from ghostwood, guiding the travelers along half-submerged causeways. Jojen's moss-pale eyes lingered on Daenerys when introductions were made. He spoke a single sentence. The tide brings many things to our water roads. Some it keeps, then fell silent, leaving Dany to puzzle over the meaning as the causeways narrowed to planks hardly wider than a man's shoulders. That night, Ned summoned her to a watchfire that hissed inside a ring of standing stones. Behind him, the reeds shook with wind and frog song. He offered a seat on a lichen-slick boulder. Your life, he began, will soon belong to shadows and whispers. In King's Landing each smile contains a knife. Thou and a sob. She kept her chin high. I will not shame you, father. The word still felt new on her tongue. Jon had coaxed her into using it, insisting it was truth enough after 13 years. But it warmed Ned's eyes each time, and so she wielded it now. Ned watched sparks climb into the black. To meet steel with naked flesh is folly. I have written to Sir Jorah Mormont in exile, bidding him deliver to me any word of your brother's movements in Essos. Viserys may seek allies when he learns you live. He fixed her with that iron-gray gaze. If he crosses the narrow sea, I must decide whether mercy or iron best secures your future. Would you have me spare him?" A wind of old memories swept through her, driftwood dreams of a golden prince who swore crowns and dealt blows in equal measure. She folded her hands until knuckles whitened. "I would have him judged justly. If his heart is true, let him prove it. If not—" She looked into the fire, seeing flames curl like claws. "I will not beg for chains." Ned nodded once. Honest words. He placed a small wrapped bundle in her lap. "Then, take honest steel. Jon had this fashioned from the Winterfell forge. A woman may carry a blade without shame, and a Stark ward most of all." "That's damned." Her breath caught as she unwrapped the oilcloth. A short sword, between a dirk and a proper blade, bright as moonlit river water. Wolf's head pommel, 3 small garnets set for eyes. "Does it have a name?" "That is for the bearer." A faint smile touched him. "Name it well, my girl." She drew the sword halfway, feeling its eager whisper. Snowfire, she decided, and slid it home again. Moat Catelyn's ruined towers hunched on the horizon on the 9th day, black against a haze of salt marsh. There the king's host awaited. Lannister crimson splashed across golden lion banners, Baratheon black stag stamping in the wind. Robert himself sat astride a great courser, red-cheeked from wine even at dawn. When Ned's column arrived, Robert spurred forward, bear-hugged his old friend in the saddle, slapped Rob's letter of greeting to his breastplate, and swept the party into the greater procession. Daenerys found herself riding beside Sansa, Arya darting like a shadow between wagons. The royal baggage train stretched half a mile, gilded carriages and ox-drawn wine carts rolling over causeways that sank by inches into the bog. Lannister guardsmen eyed the northern men with open contempt. But Ned's oath men rode silent, expressions carved from the same dark stone as their homeland. That evening, the king ordered a hunt. He drank more than he rode, bawling songs about maidens with hair of silver sunshine, and Daenerys felt his gaze linger each time he emptied a skin. When the boar charged unexpectedly, Robert's spear glanced. The beast ripped Robert's thigh, and only Sir Barristan's swift sword ended the matter. As the king bled into muddy grass, Cersei descended from her saddle with an expression as smooth as painted marble. She knelt, pressed her silk kerchief to the wound, and whispered something Dany could not hear over the shouts for a litter. But she saw Cersei's eyes flick to her, bright with calculating light. The maesters bound Robert. The royal train halted 2 days for him to rest. Cersei wasted none of those hours. Servants carried trays to Ned's tent, always covered, but never the same servants twice. One night, a cupbearer staggered away as if dazed, blood trickling from a neat cut behind his ear. Varys the eunuch scuttled like a pale spider through the camp, assuring Ned of the realm's gratitude while leaving unsigned promises in his wake. Littlefinger laughed behind his beard at supper, hinting that the king's wound might have been a lover's gift from a certain wolfish northern rose. Each rumor touched Daenerys' name before drifting on, thin as smoke. She chose silence and drill as armor. At dawn, she practiced with Jon. Snowfire against Longclaw in slow, precise movements, though servants whispered that trading blows with a bastard shamed a lady. She ignored them. Jon's quiet praise mattered more than their disapproval, and when Snowfire nicked his sleeve and drew a line of red on the inside of his forearm, Daenerys bound the cut herself, fingers steady, though her heart thundered worse than hoofbeats. "You'll be a knight yet," Jon teased. She shook her head. "Knights kneel to kings. I think I'm done kneeling." "Then?" He watched her a moment. Something. Not fear, not pride, something fiercer. A light behind gray eyes. Then he sheathed Longclaw and said I'd best find breakfast before the cooks burned the oats again. King's Landing heaved into view like a rusted crown pressed upon the sea. The Red Keep's towers stabbed the haze. The air tasted of salt, olive smoke, and sewage fermenting in the heat. Ned Stark's party passed beneath the mud gate as bells rang welcome. And among the welcoming crowd, Daenerys saw faces tilt upward, some curious, some hungry, some hateful. In the throne room, Robert climbed the iron steps with visible effort. Sweat darkened his doublet. He sank into the Iron Throne and waved Ned forward. The court crowd murmured as the Northern Lord bent the knee. Daenerys stood beside Sansa and Arya, conscious of splintered swords woven into the seat, of sharp edges that drank dragon blood centuries ago. Robert's wine-wet breath carried over the dais. He named Ned Hand, pressed a heavy clasp upon his breast, and then called for music and more drink. The formality done, he beckoned to the Northern Flower and introduced her, loudly, sloppily, to the assembled nobles. Wine-fueled jests rippled. Dany managed curtsies, lips tight. When she stepped back, a slender youth caught her gaze. Prince Joffrey, gold hair gleaming, smirk curling his mouth. He bowed with exaggerated grace. She matched the courtesy in silence. His eyes traveled from her face to the curl of Snowfire's hilt peeking beneath her cloak. The smirk became speculation. She felt a prickle of warning. Court life became a maze of feast and farce. By day, Ned buried himself in ledgers of coin and whispers of treason. By night, the castle glittered with torchlight, as Lannister gold flowed like molten honey through every corridor. Catelyn's letters arrived thrice weekly, recounting Bran's slow healing of mind, though not of body. Her words smelled of smoke, as if each page had been held near flame. Robb struggled with duties. Rickon howled for absent siblings. The distance between the north and the capital stretched like a wound, too long untended. Within a fortnight, tongues wagged of matches. Renly Baratheon spoke loudly of joining Joffrey to Sansa Dabdate. Varys cooed that a certain ward of the Starks might sweeten alliances if bound to a young lord of strategic worth. Littlefinger merely smiled at Daenerys in passing, bowing low, as though he already knew the coin's face and weight. Cersei hosted a supper in honor of the Hand's household. Candle smoke curled along vaulted ceilings, and harpists played songs older than Aegon's Landing. Dany wore a gown of midnight blue trimmed with white fox, hair braided in simple northern loops. Cersei greeted her with a kiss on each cheek. "You shine, dear heart," she purred, "almost like a star fallen upon us." When wine loosened conversations, the Queen proposed a game. Every guest must answer a single personal question posed by another. Refusal meant drinking a flagon in one draught. Laughter rose. Lords and ladies leaned close, smelling opportunity. Cersei invited Dany into the circle between Ser Jaime and Lord Baelish. Littlefinger turned first. "Lady Daenerys, a simple puzzle, of all creatures of land or sky, which stirs your heart most fiercely." His eyes glimmered with mischief. She felt every ear tilt. One false syllable could bear her secret. She took a breath. "The dire wolf," she said, and felt the truth in it. For it protects as fiercely as it hunts. Somewhere across the circle, Arya whooped approval, and Lord Baelish's grin widened as though he'd been outwitted. Cersei inclined her head, seeing more than she let show. The goblets moved on. In her turn, Daenerys looked Littlefinger in the eye and asked, "What do you desire most yet fear you cannot keep?" Wine pooled silent beneath his tongue before he answered, "The next breath." Laughter rolled, but Dany watched the lie flicker behind his lash-fringed stare. When the goblets emptied, Cersei dismissed the revelers with well wishes for sweet dreams. Daenerys turned to follow her sisters, but a hand, long-fingered, cold, closed on her forearm. The Queen's green gaze held her still. "Walk with me." They crossed a balcony shimmering with torchlight. Below, the black water dreamed under a moon, half drowned in clouds. Cersei rested pale palms on a parapet. "You play their game well for one so sheltered." "I learned games among the snows," Dany said. "They teach you to keep moving or freeze." "A wise lesson." Cersei's voice flowed smooth as satin. "Tell me, dear, have you ever seen a dragon skull?" The question chilled the night. Dany's breath feathered. "No." "Come." Cersei led her down staircases whose torches spat oily shadows. Guards bowed them through iron-bound doors. At last they entered a cavernous hall lined with monstrous shapes, skulls of ash and bone, jagged maws gaping, eye sockets huge enough to swallow a man. Dragonfire's memory clung like old smoke to the stones. Cersei touched the snout of a skull taller than she. "Balerion," she whispered. "The Black Dread. See how even dead things may serve. Trophies to cow the living." Her hand slid across ancient bone until she reached a fragment still faintly gleaming, as if scorched glass froze mid-melt. The last king whose blood was true dared call himself dragon. "My Robert keeps the trophies but not the fear." She turned. "Do you find them beautiful?" Daenerys stepped closer to a smaller skull, brittle fangs a finger's breadth from her own. Something in her chest throbbed, a half-remembered thunder. "I find them sad," she said. "They were mighty once. Now they guard dust." Cersei's laugh echoed, too loud. "Then pity them, if it pleases you." Her mirth faded to iron. "But heed their lesson. Power unguarded turns to bone. Remember that, northern flower." She drifted back toward the stairs, skirts whispering, "I think we understand each other, you and I." After her footsteps faded, Daenerys remained. She lifted a hand to the smallest skull, no bigger than a hound. Cold stone met warm skin. She closed her eyes and imagined flame curling around the bone, giving it life again, fire veins throbbing. In the hush, she thought she heard breathing. Soft, slow, like coals pulsing in a forge. She opened her eyes, but the skull was silent, the hall still. That night, she dreamed of a great white wolf with burning violet eyes. It hunted through snow, but when it opened its jaws a river of fire poured out, melting mountains in red cascades. Weeks spun like arrow fletching in a gale. Ned's investigation into Jon Arryn's death stirred hornets. Whispers reached Daenerys through Arya, about bastards sired by the king, about a book of lineages, about gold cloaks trailing Littlefinger through Flea Bottom. Sansa swooned over betrothal gowns. Joffrey squeezed her hand too tight. Jon trained daily with the city watch, acquiring fresh bruises. Dany sparred alone now, snowfire carving flickers of reflection in the dawn mist, as if writing runes no maester could read. On the day word came of Catelyn's seizure of Tyrion Lannister at the crossroads. Tension set every corridor singing. Lannister steel scraped as swords were sharpened. Spies haunted the hands' chambers. Ned ordered his household to pack discreetly. He meant to send the girls north, all of them together. A letter already dashed off to Robb to muster bannermen. But nightfall brought an invitation from the small council. The king demanded his hand at once. Daenerys joined Sansa and Arya outside Ned's solar, hearts pounding. The door cracked. Ned stepped through, face ashen, wordless. He drew Dany aside. "Gather your sisters. Ready the horses in the Godswood. Say nothing." "What is it?" "War." His mouth shaped the word like glass about to shatter. "Robert rides to hunt at first light. When the sun sets, we ride north. I will resign the office." Daenerys gripped his arm. "The Queen will not let us simply leave. We will not ask." He met her eyes, a plea in the glare. "Watch over them. Over Jon, too. I see now how wrong I was to keep you children of secrets. Keep each other alive, that will be enough." "And that is a one." Her throat filled with embers, but she nodded. Midnight cloaked the keep as direwolves gather clouds. Dany hurried Arya across courtyards, Sansa trailing in tearful confusion. Jon waited with 3 horses, his own, plus Snow, the gentle filly Sansa favored, and a rangy black for Dany. He pressed a travel cloak into her arms. "Master of Horse owed me a favor." They led the mounts through a postern. Torches bobbed below at the main gate, but none here. Hoofbeats swallowed by mossed paving. They entered the Godswood's hush. The heart tree's face glimmered pallid. Ned appeared moments later, cloaked, sword at hip. Behind him strode Jory and 2 sworn men. Then torchlight flared. Gold cloaks surged from brush, crossbows lifted. Cersei stepped into view, Jaime at her side, steel in hand. "I feared the hand might forget to say farewell," Cersei called. Ned drew ice halfway. "Stand aside. I resign my post and leave at the king's will." "The king?" Cersei's smile glittered. "My Robert rides beyond these walls. Should ill fortune befall him, why, the realm must have a steady hand." She gestured. Archers cocked bolts. Gaime's blade hissed. "Surrender the traitors or bleed." Arya sank into a crouch. Jon shifted subtly forward. Dany felt Snowfire's weight, but Ned's quiet command halted them. He straightened. "You will not harm my children." "Children?" Cersei's gaze pierced Dany. "Oh, but that one is far more." She raised a gloved finger. "Seize the girl." Bolts streaked. Ned shoved Sansa down. Jon flung a dagger. Jaime batted it aside. Dany darted left, Snowfire flashing to deflect a quarrel. Pain ripped her shoulder, grazed, not deep. She rolled behind a mulberry trunk. Steel clanged. Jory engaged Jaime, blades ringing. Gold cloaks closed on Ned. Ice swept arcs of silvered dusk, felling two. Arya vanished into undergrowth like a shadow cat. Dany pressed her back to bark, breath ragged. Around her, arrows thudded, men cursed. She tasted blood. Hers. She thought of dragon skulls, of a mother she never knew, of Bran's still form. And then, clearer than the din, she heard wings, the sound from her dream, a single great pulse of air. Snowfire seemed to warm. She peeked from cover. Cersei stood alone now, the gold cloaks wary of Ice's reach. Jaime knocked Jory's sword aside, ran him through. Ned roared, drove Jaime back. A stray bolt struck the mulberry. Bark exploded near her ear. Fury erupted inside Daenerys. She stepped from hiding, sword point shining red with her own blood. Enough. The word cracked like thunder. Every head turned. Even Ned faltered. Cersei's eyes widened, taking in the silver hair unhooded, the eyes burning violet in torch glare. Recognition lit her. "Dragon." She spat the whisper. Bolts angled toward Dany. Ice flew, severed one archer's arm. Jaime cursed. Dany lifted Snowfire with both hands, but before wood flexed again, Arya burst from darkness, needle flashing. She hamstrung a bowman, darted away. Chaos split the line. Jon sights the moment. He wrenched a torch from a sconce and hurled it into a patch of spilled lamp oil by the wall. Flame whooshed high, leaping to branches. Gold cloaks recoiled. Smoke roiled upward, veiling vision. "Ride," Ned ordered. Jory's corpse twitched on leaves. Ned dragged Sansa toward the horses, while Arya cut Dany's sleeve free of blood-sticky cloth and shoved her toward the black gelding. Jon mounted behind her, reins in fists. Flame spread across underbrush, wild and hungry. Cersei screamed orders lost in crackle. Hooves pounded. The four burst through a gap, smoke cloaking pursuit. They thundered across small gardens, leapt a low wall, and clattered onto the eastern postern where Varys, of all souls, stood waiting, keys in hand. "Haste," he hissed, eyes huge. "Stables yonder. 5 good mounts readied for the hand." He shoved a parchment at Ned as the gate groaned open. A map, smuggler's tracks along the black water. "Go now, while the queen chokes on her own smoke." "Bill." Ned stared, suspicion warring with need. Jon wrenched his reins. "Father." Ned pocketed the map. "Why help us?" Varys bowed. "Some fires burn hotter than wildfire. I prefer the realm not turn to ash." He glanced at Daenerys, and for a moment she thought she saw tears in those almond eyes. "Go, little dragon. Fly." They galloped into night. Behind, shouts rose, bells clanged. Flames painted the keep's towers orange. The hand of the king fled with 2 daughters, a bastard, and a dragon blood ward, while in the godswood of the Red Keep, dragon fire of another kind chewed bark and bone, devouring the queen's trap in hungry red tongues. They rode south rather than north, safer for the moment, Ned declared, for the queen's spies expected a northern flight. Varys' map led to a fisher village where Ned paid a smuggler 300 golden dragons, most of his fortune, to bear them to Storm's End. Their Stannis Baratheon, said Ned, would harbor them until Tywin Lannister's wrath cooled, or the king returned from the hunt alive to bring order. If King Robert lived. On the cramped deck of the Merry Merman, Daenerys sat under patched sails and watched King's Landing dwindle to sparks. Salt wind stung her shoulder, wound but cleared her mind. Jon brought her a rag soaked in brandy and cleaned the blood. "You should rest," he murmured. "Not yet." She followed an ember that flared where the godswood must lie. Tonight I felt something wake. I don't know if it was in me or in the world. No. Jon teed the rag. Whichever, it saved us. Ned approached, cloak snapping in wind. When we reach Storm's End, Stannis may press claim to the Iron Throne if Robert falls. I must decide whether to back him or carve a different path. He fixed Dany with that measured gaze. The realm might accept no king, only a queen of fire and ice. Shock prickled her skin colder than salt spray. I am no queen. Not yet, Ned said. But the realm will need one. He looked to the children. Arya curled asleep by a coil of rope, Sansa staring bleakly at dark tide, Jon silent but unbowed. It may need all of you. Daenerys reached for Snowfire's hilt, warmth steady beneath her palm, and thought of wolves running beside dragons, of winter winds that carried embers yet unquenched. The sea stretched before them unending, but dawn, somewhere beyond, would come scarlet and gold. She closed her eyes and saw once more the white wolf with violet gaze. This time it stood not in snow, but on a green field before a burning city. At its side walked a silver-scaled dragon, wings mantling the sky. They turned together, and she understood. Where one left tracks in frost, the other left tracks in flame, yet both walked the same road. Daenerys opened her eyes to darkness, but her heart beat with that crimson sunrise, fierce and inevitable. She whispered into the wind, a promise carried on salt and starlight. Let the world beware, we are coming. The ship creaked onward, sails billowing toward dawn, and the girl raised among wolves steeled herself for the storms and crowns that waited beyond the edge of night. Spray burst against the merry merman's prow in cold, foaming sheets, while the thin deck planks thrummed beneath Daenerys' boots like wounded strings. The wind had shifted west and brought a smell of rain so clean it seemed to scour every sour memory of King's Landing from the air. She breathed it deeply, bracing one hand on the salt-slick rail as gulls shrieked above the rigging. Dawn was an hour gone. Far astern, a charcoal stain marked the capital's smoldering sky, proof that the Queen's fires in the godswood still gnawed timber and leaf. Ahead, nothing but iron-colored sea and the promise of Storm's End. Jon emerged from below with Arya stalking at his heel like a small gray shadow cat. He carried bowls of pottage that steam could not quite disguise as thin, and Arya slopped one onto the rail beside Dany. Cook swore there was ham, the girl said, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Lies. There's nothing but oats and yesterday's water. Dany forced a crooked smile. To a starving direwolf, oats are a banquet. Arya snorted, but dug her wooden spoon in. Jon passed a second bowl to Dany, then leaned his elbows beside her. Wind's freshening. Captain says we'll make the Stormlands by sunset, if it holds. And if Robert? If the king still breathes? Dany kept her voice low. Captain says ravens fly quicker than any ship. If the king were dead, half the realm would know already. Jon's mouth flattened. Cersei too. Perhaps that's worse. Perhaps, Dany thought, tasting oats gone gummy. Viscous sludge clung to her tongue, yet she swallowed every bite. Food was fuel and armor. She would not weaken now. Below them Sansa sat cross-legged near the mainmast, hair unbound, reading the parchment of Catelyn's latest letter over and over, though Dany knew every line by heart. Bran wakes, though words come slowly. Robb fortifies moat Catelyn. Ravens whisper of lion banners massing at Harrenhal. Sansa's lips moved with each line as if prayer could bend ink to new shapes. A lantern sway cast bars of gold across her face. In that flicker she looked less like a girl who dreamed of lemon cake courts, and more like her wolf sigil, wary and wounded. Ned Stark emerged last, the step of a man who had slept little and thought too much. Lines the sea wind could not claim marked his brow. He beckoned the children to the stern cabin where a map was spread beside a stub of tallow. Word may reach Storm's End that the king lies wounded, Ned began, voice hoarse. If the wound took him by now, the maester's raven could arrive before us. I must be ready to seal an alliance with Lord Stannis, or bar his gate, should he heed counsel that calls me traitor. Nani. You served Robert, Sansa said. Why would Lord Stannis doubt you? Because courts breed doubt. Ned touched the parchment's coastline. Stannis is iron, but iron may shape to sharper ends than mine. Will he shelter us? Arya asked. He must, Ned said, then met Daenerys' gaze squarely. But only if he sees advantage equal to risk. That advantage may be you. A hush answered. Once those words would have chilled Dany deeper than any winter gale. Now she merely nodded. If my name steadies his throne, I'll wear it openly. And risk Cersei's knife across the sea? Jon bristled. Risk strengthens claims, she said simply. Ned's mouth tightened, pride and warning at once. Your courage does you honor, but bold names alone win nothing. We must forge terms careful as a Valyrian blade. He gathered the map. Bomniway? E8, rest, ready your weapons. We make landfall soon. By sunset, jagged towers of storms end rose from a cliff blanketed by foam. Lightning quickened in distant cloud banks, pale knives behind veils of sleet, and the great drumbeat of surf shuddered against the fortress walls. It was a place for storms and stubborn men, Dany thought. A keep built to stand when earth and sky declared war on each other. Rowboats ferried them beneath arching stone, crowned by carved stags. No trumpets saluted their landing. Only gulls and the boom of waves. At the postern, Lord Stannis Baratheon waited in a plain wool cloak, the color of battle ash, jaw set. Eyes as blue and pitiless as winter stars. Ned knelt. My lord, I bring my daughters, my son Jon, and Daenerys of house. I know who you bring. Stannis' gaze moved from one face to the next like a blade measuring each neck. Payne's hand appears upon my strand unbidden, in flight from royal justice. Explain. Ned rose stiffly. I flee treachery, not justice. The queen aimed crossbows at my daughters, my ward, and at me. A bold claim. Proof. Witnesses enough. And dragonfire in the gods wood to bury the proof she hoped would silence us. At the word dragonfire, Stannis' eyes narrowed at Dany. She bore it, standing taller, though cloak weight tugged at her wounded shoulder. Jon stood half-step behind, one hand resting on the hilt of Longclaw. Stannis looked past them toward the ship pulling at anchor. At dawn I'll hear every breath of this tale. For tonight you rest, under my watch, not as guests but as charges. Keep answers ready. He signaled guards. They followed torches through rain-slick courtyards into stone quarters, austere as monk cells, barred windows, straw pallets, a brazier set low to save charcoal. But the door locked on the inside, and that small mercy meant breath without fear of Lannister knives, if only for an hour. Waves hammered through the night like distant siege engines. Daenerys' dreams whirled with wings of pale fire circling a keep of storm-dark stone. Each thunderclap became a dragon's roar. Each roar became her own heartbeat, until she woke slick with sweat, despite the chill. She rose, careful not to rouse Arya sprawled beside her, and slipped into the corridor where guttering rushlights cast tall trembling shadows. Half the guards slept, slumped on benches. Storm's End kept men awake by gale alone. She stepped onto a parapet walkway, where wind lashed wet hair against her cheeks. Below, black water exploded white upon rocks. A figure stood at the far Merlon, melancholy silhouette limned by lightning. Jon. He heard her boots and turned, rain coursing down his face like tears no man would ever claim. Can't sleep either, she called, pitching her voice above the wind. Hard when sky and sea shout at each other. She joined him. You fear tomorrow's hearing. I fear more than that. He folded arms. Ned may win Stannis or not. If Robert lives, we're still exiles. If he dies, we're rebels without banners. And you... I what? He studied the sea. You walked into arrow hail without flinching. Sometimes I wonder if I stand beside a girl or a storm herself. Then spinny. Heat rose to her cheeks though rain stung like sleet. I flinched inside, but flinching proves nothing. He half smiled. You never did answer Littlefinger's question truly. What creature stirs your heart most? Dany's throat tightened. Once I'd have said dragons, creatures of songs, not skulls. Now I think, deerwolves, because they hunt in packs and alone they still howl for kin they can't see, because winter tries to kill them and fails. And dragons? He asked it quietly. They burn alone. Lightning flared, and the night smelled of ozone and something older, like warm stone under sun, though no sun shone. Jon reached for her hand and surprised them both. His palm was chilled, hers fever-hot. Together they watched the sea until numbness claimed their bones, and when they parted it felt less like releasing and more like storing a blade for later use. Morning council gathered in a chamber shaped like a broken shield. Not grand. A bare table, rushes damp with salt carried on wind, sconces smoking fitfully. Lord Stannis sat stiff-backed, flanked by Sir Davos Seaworth and Maester Cresson, whose beard smelled faintly of poultice. Ned related their flight, every detail down to the mulberry tree where Cersei's men bled out. Arya confirmed with sharp, spare words, Sansa with trembling clarity. Jon described the torch, the smoke wall. When at last Dany spoke, the room hushed. She told of Queen Cersei's midnight visit among dragon skulls, of the ancient thread behind her sweet words, and felt each syllable carve fresh lines on Stannis' brow. You claim the queen aimed bolts at wards of Winterfell, Stannis said. If so, she has broken royal peace. Your grace, Sir Davos murmured, glancing at Ned. Stannis acknowledged with a curt nod. He was not yet king. Robert still breathed somewhere north. Maester Cresson cleared his throat like rustling parchment. If the girl be truly of Targaryen blood, her life is doubly endangered. There are those who would see the dragon's line ended for good, and those who would raise it as banner. Stannis cut in. He leaned forward, palms braced. I have no love for Lannister plots, yet dragon banners serve the realm's memory of wildfire and tyranny. Why harbor such risk? Because she is innocent, Ned said. Because Robert's wrath already put Rhaegar's children to the sword, crimes not soon forgiven in the sight of gods or men. I will not see it repeated. And if Robert falls, then law binds the crown to his heir Joffrey, unless Joffrey be born of sin, as rumor carries. If that is true, the crown passes to you. Ned looked Stannis in the eye. My lord, I stand ready to prove the bastardy of Joffrey Baratheon, but the queen must not know until your claim is secure. Hide us as you would hide wildfire from careless hands. Nam known. Stannis sat in silence long enough for gulls to keen outside the embrasure. At last he exhaled a breath that sounded like iron bending. So be it. You and your household will remain guests under guard. I will send birds to my loyal bannerman. Storm's End prepares. He rose. The rest followed. Ned bowed. Thank you, Lord Stannis. Thank me by showing sword-edge proof when the hour comes, Stannis said, then strode out, cloak billowing like a sail cut square by storm. Days bled into each other, marked by salt-crusted breakfasts, drills along the shield wall, and council whispers. Stannis summoned Ned nightly, planning how to seize the royal fleet at Dragonstone, how to march on King's Landing before Tywin left Harrenhal. Sir Davos smuggled updates. Robert hovered between life and death. Renly fled south with the Rainbow Guard. The gold cloaks tightened queenly fists around the city. Daenerys spent hours in the keep's libraries reading any scrap yet left from Dragonstone's demolition. Nautical charts of Blackwater Bay, accounts of Aegon's campaign, a brittle roll of vellum listing dragon breeds, now extinct. She read by light that flickered like dragon tongues, and sometimes words shimmered as if ink responded to blood still hot in her veins. One wet afternoon, the castle shook under a thundercrack so sharp dust sifted from lintels. Dany closed the ledger she studied and realized she was not alone. Lord Davos stood near the archway, weather-scarred face flooded with apology. My lady, he said, his lordship asks that you attend him. She followed up a winding stair to a chamber overlooking the sea. Stannis waited with Ned and a red-robed woman whose eyes smoldered like banked embers, Melisandre of Ashai. She bowed to Dany, a strangely graceful motion that felt like one flame greeting another. Stannis spoke without preamble. Word from the capital, King Robert dead of fever from the boar's tusk. Silence answered. Ned's jaw clenched. Sansa by the window pressed knuckles to her lips. Queen Cersei crowns Joffrey, Stannis continued. Tywin Lannister marches column through the Riverlands. He turned to Ned. Your proof of bastardy. Maester Pycelle still keeps the book you described. Ned nodded. I know where. Then you must steal it. Send men into the Red Keep. Ned asked. Madness. Madness is letting a false king sit, Stannis said. He looked to Dany. Lady Melisandre believes the blood of dragons carries power. She would see if your flame can bend shadows to our cause. Dany stiffened. I am no sorceress. Perhaps you are. Melisandre's voice was velvet fire. The night is dark and full of terrors, child, but fire burns them away. Will you test your heart? The stakes are crowns and lives. Jon stepped forward. She's a girl, not your hearth to stoke. Try your flames on someone else. Melisandre's smile curved. Protective wolf. It is Dany's choice, Ned said. The candles sputtered under gust from the shutter cracks. Dany remembered arrow bolts tearing night, remembered warmth pulsing from snowfire in her palm. I will try, she said, though fear gnawed beneath sternum. What must I do? Melisandre produced a clay jar stoppered with wax. Essence of light fire distilled from obsidian at Dragonstone. Mix 1 drop of your blood, close jar, speak the name of him you would draw to you. If the Lord of Light favors truth, his steps will turn as summoned. Jon swore softly. Sansa made the sign of the 7-pointed star. Ned looked as though he balanced between faith and folly. Stannis only watched, as if staring down a tournament charge. Daenerys lifted her left hand, pricked the pad of her thumb on Snowfire's edge. A bead of red welled, brighter than garnets. She let it fall into the jar. Plop taut. The liquid inside gleamed opalescent. She pressed wax closed, heart hammering. The name, Melisandre urged. Daenerys closed her eyes, saw the Maester's tower in King's Landing, saw Pycelle's long white beard heavy with secrets. Grand Maester Pycelle, she whispered. Heat flushed her cheeks. The jar vibrated faintly. Nothing more. She exhaled. Melisandre accepted it, murmured prayer. Now we wait, the Red Woman said. Wait they did. 3 days of restless gloom broken by raven caws. On the 4th dawn, a rowing boat breasted the surf below Storm's End. Within it crouched a gaunt old man in Maester's chains, eyes rimmed red with sleepless terror. Guards hauled him before Stannis. The Maester clutched one object, a thick tome bound in cracked leather. Pycelle shivered. I awoke in the rookery with no memory of stairs, no guards roused. He babbled. Instead, a whisper in my head bade me sail east. The gates stood open, boats untied. He knelt helplessly. Take the cursed book, and spare my life. Melisandre's smile burned triumphant. Ned accepted the tome, the lineages and histories of the great houses. He flipped to the Baratheon entries where black ink declared kings born of coal-haired Steffan, yet Joffrey's hair was gold. Stannis seized the passage, jaw locking. So the boy is bastard, seed of incest. He turned to the assembled household. With Robert gone, by law and gods, I am king. But the realm bleeds lion gold. Will the North ride with me? Ned laid a hand on his sword pommel. The North will ride for justice, not ambition. Swear you will seat no child of incest, burn no innocent, and protect my daughters, Jon Snow and Lady Daenerys from harm, and Winterfell is yours. Then Berstack. Stannis eyed Dany, perhaps weighing swords against dragons. I swear by stone and sea. He drew a dagger, cut his palm, and pressed blood to Ned's. Witnessed. A roar of surf broke the moment. Thunder rolled overhead. Stannis turned to Sir Davos. Send birds. Proclaim the boy false, the queen a traitor. Rally banners. And what of Lady Daenerys? Davos asked. Stannis faced her. When battle's done, the realm will argue her claim. But for now, she rides beside me. A living reminder that kings do not rule by lies alone. And if the iron chair shatters in war, His eyes flickered to Melisandre. Perhaps a different throne, forged of fire and snow, will rise. Dany felt the weight of those words settle like mail upon her shoulders. She glanced at Jon, gray eyes bright with fierce loyalty, and at Ned, whose weary nod spoke pride and fear all at once. Sansa's frail smile, Arya's wolfish grin, they steadied her spine. "I ride," she said. So began the march of Storm and Wolf. Stannis garrison swelled by barons of the Stormlands, their stags now painted with direwolf sigils beneath. 10,000 men gathered in 3 weeks, archers under Lord Errol, knights of House Penrose, sell sails lured by Davos coin and Melisandre's talk of destiny. Ned drilled foot in fields ringed by bracken. Jon commanded a scouting company of northern spears while Arya slipped among quartermasters counting arrows. Sansa stitched banners that married the leaping stag to the grey wolf, and, at Stannis' brusque order, a small silver dragon crowned, rising behind both. At dusk on the eve of departure, Dany stood before a forge where blacksmiths shaped sword points that sparked like small meteors. She held snowfire in the glow until the steel drank orange. "Grow stronger," she whispered to the blade, and to herself. Melisandre appeared, copper hair alive where furnace light struck. "The sword is but vessel. True flame lives within the bearer." "Flame kills as quick as it warms," Dany said. "And so must you." Melisandre's hand hovered near the heat, pale unflinching. "A great darkness rises beyond thrones and mortal feuds. I see shadows with golden eyes marching from ice, and only hearts of burning blood can stand them." Dany felt a chill despite the furnace. "No riddle, priestess. Speak plain. The night your blood sang inside that jar." A door opened. "Not just for a maester with a book. The prince who was promised, the princess too. Names are veils. I know only fire against night. Yours is strong. Guard it, lest the dark drink it dry." She touched Dany's wounded shoulder, a warmth spread, easing the ache left by arrow graze. When Dany looked again, Melisandre was gone. They marched at dawn, banners snapping in sea gusts. Stannis rode at the van beneath nude of ice. Black stag, grey wolf, silver dragon entwined. Rumor ran faster than ravens. Peasants along the Roserad knelt crying trueborn Baratheon, or fled clutching children. At Bitterbridge, Lord Mathis Rowan barred gates until Davos' smuggled note changed his mind. He opened stores and swore to Stannis after reading Joffrey's birth, proof. At every campfire Dany sharpened snowfire, trained with Jon, and read by lantern glow from the lineages, committing pages to memory should the book be taken. Sometimes she dreamed of icy woods, where a white wolf watched over eggs of obsidian. When claws cracked the shells, fire spilled yet the wolf did not burn. Instead it howled, and the flames rushed north like banners. She woke always at that cry, heart drumming. As they neared King's Landing, fields turned to char and stone. Tywin's reavers had ridden through, blistering grain and hanging riverland lords. Refugees staggered past columns, gaunt, soot-streaked. Sansa pressed bread into their hands. Arya gave waterskins. Stannis arranged wagons to ferry children. Word came that Renly crowned himself at Highgarden, claiming half the realm. Ned muttered that brothers always quarreled but rarely in such numbers. At last the black ribbon of the Blackwater glittered ahead, city spires spiking the sky beyond. King's Landing teemed with gold cloaks atop walls, Lannister crimson bright as fresh wounds. Stannis held council beneath a copse of twisted olive, where ravens fidgeted, sensing feast or doom. "Our numbers lack to storm walls," he said. "Renly camps to the south, Tywin to the west. If either strikes our rear, we're trapped. We need the fleet." "The royal fleet anchors at Dragonstone," Davos said. "I can slip in, raise the garrison." "No," Stannis cut. "Dragonstone's loyalty is mine by right. I need men here." "Then we lure the boy king out," Arya piped, forgetting formality. "Make him chase us. Onto open ground where nights mean little." Ned mused. "Perhaps." "No," Dany murmured, studying the city. Chaotic roofs, smoke plumes, the Red Keep's silhouette. Cersei fortified to withstand armies, but cities burn from within. Give the people truth, they'll topple lies for you. Jon's brow creased. "How?" She met Melisandre's eye across the council ring. Let fire speak again. Summon Pycelle before the walls at dawn. Let him read Robert's decree naming Ned protector. Reveal Joffrey's bastardy. Swear that Stannis brings grain, not swords. Let the truth spark riot. Benbenfamnish. Stannis looked dubious, yet Davos nodded. Commons trust their maesters more than lords, and pyres of war burn hottest on hunger. Ned weighed a pebble in his palm, thinking, gold cloaks may cut Pycelle down. Then send me with him, Dany said. I've practiced ducking arrows. Send me too, Jon growled. And me, Arya added. Stannis' mouth twitched, an expression almost a smile. 3 pups and a hatchling beneath walls. He considered a heartbeat. Very well. At dawn, under flag of parley. If arrow flies first, Dragonstone steel will answer. Nine they're all. Dawn painted the sky bruise purple when a single cart clattered toward the king's gate. On it stood Grand Maester Pycelle in robes still travel-stained, Ned Stark in plain mail, and Daenerys in wolf fur and silver braid. Jon and Arya rode flanks, spears butts planted. Ahead, gold cloaks lined battlements, crossbows ready. A herald shouted for their names. Ned answered cool, demanding safe conduct under King's law of parley. Silence met him. Then the gate creaked, and a party advanced. Sir Boros Blount leading, white cloak sullied by ash. Pycelle unfurled the parchment. His voice quavered but carried. By decree of King Robert Baratheon, first of his name, Lord Eddard Stark, his name protector of the realm, until my son come of age. Murmurs rippled behind walls. Pycelle continued, it is further recorded that any who impede this charge are traitor. He drew a breath. And here set is proof of the lineage of Joffrey Baratheon, born of Queen Cersei Lannister and her brother Sir Jaime Lannister, thereby false heir. Gasps erupted, then shrieks when some crossbowman loosed at the cart. The bolt skittered off wood. Jon yanked Pycelle down. Arya's arrow sang back, grazing Blount's helm. Gold cloaks shouted confused oaths. Civilians on the wall began pelting guards with stones. Within moments pushes grew, torches ignited woven stalls near the gate. Chaos blossomed like wildfire. Dany watched it leap stall to awning, people flooding streets behind, a tide of outrage released. Sir Boros ordered retreat. The gate rumbled shut but too late. Rioters rushed out, trampling a line of spears. Ned vaulted from the cart, pulled Dany to saddle behind Jon. They'll open the gate from inside once panic spreads, he said over din. We pull back. Signal Stannis. As they wheeled, Dany glimpsed a gaunt boy on the battlement clutching a torch cast by some fleeing guard. He hurled it into a stack of pitch barrels the Lannisters had stored for defense. Flames swallowed them whole. An eruption of heat slammed the air. The boy flailed, clothes catching, but in that blaze she saw prophecy. A city purged in dragonfire not sprung from scale, but from broken chains. They galloped for the olive copse. Stannis watched smoke columns with grim satisfaction. Inside the walls, bells tolled and screams rose. Streets clogged with stampede. Gold cloaks turned on each other, some for coin, some for conscience. Stannis drew sword. Now we press. He signaled to his captains. Crescent formation. Hold the line until the gates fracture. Banners lifted, drums thundered. Ned clasped Dany's shoulder. You lit the pyre. Remember, fire is a tool, not a master. She nodded but felt heat coil within. Jon swung onto a fresh horse. Arya leaped behind her father, needle poised. Sansa prayed amid servants. Melisandre lifted arms skyward, crimson sleeves billowing, chanting words older than Westeros. Then the roar came, not of plague or siege engines, but of a city's heart cracking open. The king's gate burst outward, driven by pressure within. Civilians flooded, shrieking for bread, screaming Cersei's name like a curse. Above the turmoil, the stag-wolf dragon banner rose, carried by a knight of House Penrose. Stannis spurred forward, voice ringing. No plunder, no rape, justice only. By rightful claim and by flame of truth. What followed was not battle so much as collapse. Gold cloaks tore lion badges from surcoats, kneeling. Small folk hurled pots, stones, kitchen knives from windows upon remaining loyalists. A company of Lannister spears fled toward the river, only to meet Davos Selsails landing with axes. Near sunset, Daenerys rode through the shattered gate. Ash drifted, her eyes watered. The smell was roasting grain, burning oil, fear. Yet amid ruin, she saw children chasing fallen coins, women pulling brothers from under carts, and men once cowed raising fists in rough victory. A city reborn in soot and tears. Up the hill, the Red Keep still stood, but its towers flashed crimson and gold in torchlight as Stannis' vanguard climbed. From a distant balcony she glimpsed Cersei's silhouette, a pale statue against flame. The queen's hand lifted something black. Crossbow? No. A bundle. For an instant Dany's pulse froze, fearing a hostage. But the queen stepped back, doors slammed. Later, Stannis' men would find that Cersei fled with Joffrey, and Tommen through Maegor's tunnels, Jaime covering retreat. War was not won, only begun. Yet, as Stannis raised banner atop Maiden's tower and bells tolled again, this time for a king of oaths not lies, Daenerys felt Snowfire hum at her hip, warm and eager. Jon rode to her side, helm dented, cheeks smeared with soot. "You did it," he said. "No," she answered, gazing at columns of smoke swirling above spires. "The realm did. When truth found flame." He followed her gaze. "What now?" "Now the storm moves north. We have lions to hunt, and a brother crowned in Highgarden, and winter still to answer." She thought of Bran's dream message delivered by Raven 2 nights prior. White shadows moving in the far north, dead things that would not die. Another war waited. "We'll face them," Jon said softly, as if sensing her thought. "Wolves and dragons together." She turned, met his eyes, ashen gray lit by tower fires. "Together," she echoed, then leaned forward and pressed her brow to his. The gesture felt older than any prayer. From behind came hoofbeats, in calling. Arya laughing wild, Sansa's relieved sob. They would gather, plan, march again. Stannis' victory needed holding. Tywin's host would not yield. Renly's roses bared hidden thorns. Yet on that night, atop broken stones of a gate, meant to keep kings safe, stood children grown swift in crisis, a direwolf lord's daughters, a bastard with a giant's heart, and a girl of dragon blood raised among wolves. The smoke curled around them, shaping itself, just for an instant, into wings spread wide against the dying light. Daenerys felt their beat in her chest. Not yet. She promised those spectral wings. But soon. And when they beat for real, when fire met ice upon fields far to the north, the world would know the truth of a winter-born dragon. Smoke coiled from the ragged crown of the Red Keep like mourning veils, as the hush after conquest settled over King's Landing. Those who had fought, fled, or merely survived, now stood in square and alley, hollow-eyed, uncertain, which banners to kneel beneath. In the bailey before Maegor's holdfast, men of the Stormland struck the stag-wolf dragon colors into fractured paving stones, and hauled down the lion pennons that had fluttered only a day before. Just beyond the gate, Ned Stark watched the sigils change, counting each heartbeat as if each tick of blood marked a step deeper into peril rather than relief. Daenerys found him amid the press of soldiers, soothing their burns at a water cart. His cloak was cut where a spearhead had clawed him near the shoulder, but the gray wool hung over fresh mail still bright where not splashed by blood. He did not hear her approach. She saw his eyes fixed on the gate tower, perhaps seeing ghosts of enemies already gone. "Cersei took the prince and the younger boy," Dany said, soft so as not to startle. Ned's gaze flitted to her, then returned to the tower. "And the little girl, Myrcella. 3 lions in flight take every shred of gold with them. She's not done yet." He dragged fingers through hair greased by sweat and soot. "Stannis holds the capital, but crowns grow heavier with each leak of blood." "Winterfell knows the weight of storms," she answered. We've shoulders enough if we stop bickering over who lifts first." He offered a tired half-smile. In the slower cadence of the north he murmured, "If only the realm were a forge. Throw brothers and bannermen into one fire, and draw out one tempered blade." He exhaled sharply, and his face steadied. "Stannis wants counsel. Come. No one doubts your part in the gate's fall." He started inward through archways, where char still guttered on arrow loops. Maester Cresson and Sir Davos waited with Stannis in the throne room. The iron throne itself glimmered in dusklight leaking past arrow-scarred glass, yet Stannis had placed no foot upon its steps. He chose instead a war table dragged from the Tower of the Hand, gouged, scarred, but unburnt. Sir Davos laid parchments across it, while Melisandre stood behind the new king, her scarlet shadow tall on torn arras. Stannis greeted Ned with a curt nod, but his gaze held Dany longer, equal parts calculation and a flicker of wary respect. "Reports from the river," he began without ceremony. "Lord Tywin broke camps at Harrenhal at dawn. He marches east to Maidenpool, perhaps to swing south of the Crownlands and strike my lines, perhaps to carve north. Renly halts at Bitterbridge, numbers swelled by Reach lords." He flicked fingers at 2 wax-sealed missives. "Both urge parley, but refuse fealty. Both wait to see which throne stands when dust settles," Ned said. "Then dust cannot be allowed to settle," Stannis growled. He tapped a dagger on the table's rim. "We ride at dusk tomorrow. Leave enough men to secure the harbor and grain silos. The capital stinks of riot and famine. Let Davos and Lord Penrose keep order." He turned to Daenerys. "You ride too." Dany lifted her chin, though the ache in her bruised ribs pulsed with each breath. "Where?" "Storm's End has grain but not smiths enough for a protracted war. I march west to cut Renly from his garden lords before Tywin joins him. You will accompany Lord Stark north. Rally the river lords, lift the Lannister siege at River Run, when Robb Stark leads his forces south from Moat Cailin. 3 armies may crush Tywin between hammer and anvil." Ned straightened. "A sound plan, save for distance and snow. Spring ends soon even in the Crownlands. Roads will churn to mire. Better mud than lion claws." Stannis folded arms. "I need the North's host whole, not bleeding under Tywin's mail." He looked at Jon, who waited near the door, in half-splinted brigandine. "Your bastard stands captain of the personal guard assigned to the Dragon Girl." Jon bristled. "I ride to fight. You will, but her survival is battle itself." Stannis faced Dany again. "The small folk call you Fire and Snow. They whisper prophecy of old Valyria, of the wolf who walks with wings. Let the lion hear that rumor and tremble. A weapon drawn need not always strike to win a war." Across the table, Melisandre's lips curved as though she tasted honey on the air. "She carries light in her blood. Let wolves bear her north. Let stags break shields in the west. Let light meet darkness where ice shelves whisper." Cresson harumphed softly but said nothing. The maester's wrinkled fingers tightened on his quills. Ned leaned closer to his king. "Send me north then, but grant leave to take Pycelle. His chains still carry weight in Old Town and beyond. If he publicly repudiates Joffrey's legitimacy, Tyrells might think twice before bolstering Renly." "Now, Nedero." Stannis made a sound like steel scoring stone. "Take him. Hang him if he falters." He swept eyes over the assembly. "We ride separate ways, but one purpose holds: put an end to lions lying." Jon shifted, then spoke in the hush that followed. "When Tywin is crushed, and Joffrey dead or fled, what crown remains? Baratheon, stag, or Targaryen dragon?" Silence beat like wings. Ned's expression warned of tempests. Davos tensed as if expecting swords. But Stannis answered levelly, "When justice lives again, the realm may debate its style of throne. My claim rests in law, hers rests in blood. Perhaps both will burn if war grips too long. But victory must come first. Ask again when snow melts on Summerhall." Jon said nothing more. Yet Daenerys felt a strange relief, as though the question itself had built a bridge of candor across a chasm of suspicion. Within a day the city echoed with marching boots. Stannis' host clattered west across the Roserad. Sigils of noble Stormlands houses mingled with grey direwolves carried by 1,000 Northmen, newly entered by sea from White Harbor on Davos smuggling cogs. Ned's smaller column, river lords resummoned, North spears under Galbart Glover, and a train of wagons filled with cracked red keep flour, departed by the King's Gate to thunder of drums. Dust swallowed the walls behind them, while raven wings cut swift messages over spires still blackened. Across the bay, Cersei's fleet, now commanded by Sir Harys Swift, hugged the shore toward Dragonstone, aware too late that the island fortress had flown stag banners since sunrise. Distant sails burned before dusk. Davos men lit the sky crimson as token of loyalty to Stannis. Smoke pillars trailed behind like tattered pennons. Daenerys rode at Ned's side at the head of the river column. Jon guided his detachment half a bow shot ahead, scouts fanning through scrub pine and ruined orchards. Sansa and Arya shared a wheelhouse near the column's center, so their presence would not slow the march. Pycelle rode under guard, too weak, perhaps too terrified for mischief. By night, Ilyn Payne's execution square haunted Dany's dreams, though in waking she had never seen it, and she would startle to find Jon's shape seated outside her tent flap, sword across lap, firelight glinting in eyes that seemed older each sunset. She did not know if his vigil sprang from duty or something deeper, and she dared not ask. The question itself felt like a living coal she must cradle until the moment proved right to set it somewhere safe. The Riverlands welcomed Ned's banners with cautious hope. At Duskendale, a bakery wagon rumbled out to offer stale loaves. In Maidenpool fisherwives wept to see the wolf banner and pressed crayfish into waiting gauntlets. Yet smoke still marred the horizon where lion outriders torched hamlets to deny Stannis grain. Dany smelled charred thatch long before she saw each ruin, and Snowfire's hilt ever warmed at her flank until she thought the steel might glow at dusk. They reached the God's Eye on a morning veiled in heavy fog. Ravaged villages dotted the shore like skulls half buried in mud. Scouts returned with news. An honor guard of Housefrey held the bridge at Fairmarket, closing passage east unless Ned swore fealty to King Joffrey. Ned's jaw set. Galbart Glover spat into the reeds. "We'll cross at Stonehenge," Ned decided. "Lord Bracken still owes Winterfell for the grain we sent when his fields failed. And Frees need reminding they straddle a river, not a kingdom." The detour cost 2 days, but spared blood. Lord Titos Bracken welcomed them into charred courtyards, where stripped corpses dangled from barn beams in silent accusation of Lannister raiders. He gave fresh horses, oats, and 300 riders. At sup Dany sat beside Arya before a hearth flickering under hearth-scarred stone. Soot scrawled black phantoms overhead. Outside, wind moaned through arrow slits. Arya hacked tough mutton with a dagger. "Frey's a worm," she growled. "When this war ends, someone ought lock him in his own bridge until he rots." "Wars birth new grudges faster than they kill old ones," Dany said, pushing beans across bread trencher. "Then end the war quickly," Arya shot back. She bit through fat. "You're Daenerys, Stormborn. Break some chains." Dany forced a smile. "Stormborn'll claim. Chainbreaker must wait. Chains come in shapes unseen." Later she found Jon outside, leaning on a crenel over the dark water of the Tumblestone. Silver ripples reflected half-clouded moon. Torchlight from towers haloed him. "My sister likes you," he said without turning. "She likes swords and honesty," Dany replied, stepping to the parapet. "She thinks both live in you." His voice was quiet, but not solemn. Something lighter glimmered. Dany breathed damp air tasting of ashes and lily root. "Your sister sees what she wants. And I—" He faced her. "What do I see?" Dany felt her pulse quicken. "Tell me." He smiled slightly. Someone forged of 2 worlds and not yet certain if she must choose. Moonlight silvered the downlines of his jaw where stubble had grown. She wondered if she appeared equally changed, eyes rimmed dark, hair dusty with road. "I once dreamed of a red door," she said. "Behind it lemon trees grew in warm sunlight. I thought that dream was the path back to my true self. Now each day I walk one step farther from that door and yet feel more myself than I ever did. Joan's thumb brushed the stone. I dreamed of the wall, icy towers higher than clouds. My place seemed clear, defend the realm from what crawls beyond night. Now, I stride south, wearing colors of lords I never knew, and carry their wars on my shoulders. And does it feel wrong? He shook his head. It feels wide, as if the world is bigger than any oath I spoke as a boy. He exhaled mist. I'll owe Ned to my last breath. But when these wars end, I want to stand again where snow never melts, and see if my oath still binds me. Dany remembered Bran's raven, white shadows in the north. Night gathers even if no watchman calls it, she said. Jon stretched his hand across the gap between them. Rain speckled stone, cold on her cheeks. She reached, their fingers wove together. When they parted minutes later, thunder rolled beyond hills, though no lightning marked the clouds. Next dawn riders galloped in. Tywin Lannister curved north, leaving only small rear guards to harry Stannis. His whole column angled to cut Ned off from River Run, perhaps to seize Edmure Tully as hostage against the Riverlords. Ned ordered half his host to break at once for the Red Fork with Glover and Bracken. He, with Dany and Jon, would ride hard for River Run, just 200 selected cavalry and 50 longbowmen. Speed and stealth, he said. If Tywin means siege, we must enter before the noose tightens. They rode until steeds foamed. By dusk Tywin's outriders sighted them across the trampled barley of pink maiden lands. Arrows hissed, one nicking Jon's brigandine, but Glover's rear guard fanned and loosed deadly northern shafts. Brown-fletched swarms toppling Lannister riders like strawmen. For 2 hours the chase twisted across dikes and hedges. When darkness fell, Ned veered south along a stream, galloping half the night to shake pursuit. Fires flickered to the north, Tywin's main encampment stringing torches on ridgelines, but the fort of Crossing lay only a league ahead. At sunrise, they splashed through chill water and sighted River Run's triple walls, rising over red-leafed willows, banners hanging like tired tongues in still air. Yet no lion standards flew, only the silver trout of Tully. Ned exhaled. Edmure holds. When horns called from battlements, gates grated open, and Sir Brynden Blackfish galloped forth with a handful of riders. He embraced Ned fiercely. I had feared I must turn sellsword to find an ally. Tywin closed his fist around these parts 4 days past. Ned dismounted heavy breaths. We've slipped his grasp by inches. He thinks to close tomorrow from the west. How many within? 4,000 unbloodied river spears, twice as many mouths, Brynden answered. His sharp eyes took in Dany, her silver-white hair unhooded for this honest arrival. And one I never thought to see in a Tully yard. Daenerys inclined her head. House Targaryen rides at River Run again, though by path none foretold. Brynden chuckled, surprising them. My niece Lysa named her babe for a dragon. Truth fits oddly in this world. He waved toward the gate. Come. My Lord Edmure will be gladdened, though perhaps bewildered. Inside River Run's halls, Edmure Tully greeted them in hauberk dented, a splint on his left forearm. Skirmish at Aster Meadow, he explained ruefully. Tywin's scouts snapped like jackals. He kissed Sansa's gloved hand. She had traveled by wheelhouse overnight, and bowed to Dany with gentleman's grace. His gaze lingered, more curiosity than desire. My lady, your hair outshines the dawn. It has burned away more nights than I care to tally, she replied. They feasted lightly on river trout, barley bread, and cider. Edmure laid a map upon oak planks, weighted by candle holders. Tywin's vanguard camps near Red Apple Ridge, 8,000 heavy horse and scorpions, main force 2 leagues behind. He'll circle east and cut our grain barges. If my uncle and I's sortie will bleed with no sure relief. Ned pointed to the eastern bank. Galabart Glover's foot will cross here by dawn. If they draw Tywin's eye, we strike his flank while Lord Bracken rises behind. He traced arcs with knife tip, but only if River Run holds his front gate shut. It will, Edmure swore, by spear or by stone. Dany studied blue ink swirls of river. Gateholds stand longest when enemy wants it intact. Will Tywin risk smashing walls if lion cubs cower in Casterly Rock? Jon answered quietly. A man fights different when his line teeters. He will press, but not break the fortress. Too dear a jewel. He'll starve it. Edmure shivered. Starve we might, if harvest carts keep burning. Ned tapped knuckles. Then our sortie cannot fail. Blackfish stood straight. I'll lead first spear at dawn. Let Tywin dream of fish in nets tonight. Night drew across River Run like morning silk. Dany walked walls where torches flickered, listening to black water lapstone. Memories spiraled, March dust in throat. Stannis' promise, Melisandre's warning of golden-eyed shadows crawling from ice. She pressed a palm to Snowfire's pommel and willed it to steady her. She turned to find Sansa. The elder Stark girl stood barefoot on parapet stones, hair loose, face tilted to the starlit void beyond. I used to wish for songs, Sansa whispered. Now I pray nightingales stay silent, else Tywin's archers follow their notes. Dany joined her. The songs in my head changed too. They used to end with crowns. Now they end with open gates. Sansa looked fragile in moonlight, but iron glinted in blue eyes. When this ends, I'll pen songs about open gates and girls who set cities aflame with truth. Make them singable. Dany teased gently, then quieted. You saved Pycelle's parchment during the riot. Don't think I missed you clutching it on the wagon. Sansa blushed. Words matter. She exhaled white breath. Father says there's power in pen and ink no sword may match. I meant to keep that power from falling. Then perhaps the realm will call you Sansa the Scribe, Dany said. She touched Sansa's hand, feeling warmth in slender fingers. Or Sansa the Steady. Below, horns sounded thrice, signal of scouts returning. Torches moved along banks. Dawn, they knew, loomed like an unsheathed blade. Clamor of steel, neigh of horses, splatter of mud. Dawn broke blood-red through river mist. Blackfish led lancers out the eastern gate across a spur of meadow where Tywin's vanguard pitched striped tents between scorpions still unlimbered. Trumpets blared as lion banners erupted upright. Half-armored men scrambled. Dany and Jon rode with the reserve behind Ned's column. Snowfire felt light as breath. Its garnet eyes blazed. Jon's helm matched the steel of Longclaw, pale wolf snarling on his shield. At the rear guard, Galbart Glover's infantry surged out of reed gloom, shields interlocked, pikes bristling. Horns brayed, arrows streaked overhead from River Run's battlements, plunging into outer ranks of Lannister horse. Dust and river mist twisted into cloud walls. Tywin's gold-plate standard rode into view, a roaring lion beneath red. Knights closed circular guard. Then from the east Lord Bracken's riders thundered over a rise, banners snapping trout and stallion. For one heartbeat, battlefield lines blurred into chaos. Ned's voice cut. Advance. They charged. Dany bent low over saddle, wind-tearing eyes. She felt river damp under hooves. Smelled iron tang of ruptured mail. Snowfire met a lion knight's shield. Sparks flew as steel carved through lion mane's sigil, splitting wood, sliding into flesh. She wheeled, blood spatter hot on cheek. Ahead Jon met a halberd stroke with Longclaw, severing shaft and rider alike. Lannister horns attempted rally, but Glover's pikes parted their horse wedge. Bracken lancers punched through rear flank, pennons trailing crimson. Tywin himself turned his destrier, face unreadable in battered helm. Red cloaks swarmed as he retreated toward ridge, where fresh reserves rallied. Blackfish's voice rang. Strike the banner. Dany urged her gelding through melee. Guards reared to block path. She ducked under axe swing, slashed tendon. Horse toppled. She leapt clear, rolled, up on feet among churning hooves. Snowfire found an opening beneath gorget. Another knight fell. Jon on foot now beside her. Shield raised, dragged her clear of a sweeping mace. They fought back to back, trading short vicious blows until horns sounded again, this time the long tremble of withdrawal. Tywin's gold banner shrank upslope, ringed by dwindling escort. Exhausted roars followed as River Run's gates opened to welcome returning lancers. Fields strewn with bodies, banners torn to ribbons by arrow storms. Dany's breath rasped, Joan's gauntlet on her shoulder steadying. She looked around. Ned stood sword lifted, rallying men to hold lines rather than chase. Bracken trumpets sounded recall. Glover foot hammered shields in victory's cadence. Yet Tywin was not taken, only wounded, pride bleeding heavier than his men. He withdrew toward the Gold Road with half his strength, leaving Siege Dream broken. Jon exhaled. Not crushed, but broken. Dany wiped blood flecks. Broken things are sharpened by rage. He'll strike north or west to lick wounds. West. Ned predicted that night as Maester stitched. To Lennisport to raise fresh coin for Sellswords. As they dined on spiced trout and small beer, ravens arrived. Stannis had broken Renly at Bitterbridge, though not by sword. The younger Baratheon slain in his tent before dawn under mysterious shadow. His rainbow guard scattered. Reach lords bent knee to the elder stag by midday. Some swore a shadow in Renly's tent, struck without blade. Ned met Dany's gaze. She remembered Melisandre's dark promises. Galbart Glover entered then with news colder. Beyond the neck white shadows walked, dead things stirred, small keeps abandoned in wilds north of the wall. Ravens from Castle Black begged aid. Ned closed eyes. Winter. It finds us no matter walls or wars. Jon's face turned ashen. The Night's Watch stands with fewer than 1,000. If these tidings hold, realm bickering will doom all. Silence weighed. Then Dany set her trencher down. The wall called years before these thrones crack. We must answer, if not kings, then us. No cell. Stannis was still miles away. Tywin regrouped. Cersei scuttled in secret. But in that quiet hall by the rushing Red Fork, choice took shape as clear as fresh-struck steel. Ned looked to each of them. Daughter. Daughter's protector, bastard son. Dragon ward. We ride north, he declared. Riverrun's host will hold the Riverlands. Glover returns to Moat Cailin. We four take ravens and ride for White Harbor, sail to Eastwatch with grain, swords and truth of all we've seen. Sansa? Arya asked. Ned's voice wavered. She remains here, safe behind Tully Stone until Robb arrives. Sansa bristled. I would fight. You will lead. Compose letters from rivermen to their cousins in the Vale. Plead they send men to the wall. Your quill's a lance. He touched her cheek. Greater than steel this war. She swallowed, then bowed head. Then I'll carve sentences sharper than any blade. Morning gilded river. Daenerys stood on battlements watching driftwood spin. Jon joined her. Ever sailed far north? She asked. No farther than Winterfell's docks, he replied. She smiled. Then the world grows wide again. He clasped her gloved hand. Far below, trout leapt from whitecaps. Above, ravens spiraled. Ships, snow, shadows awaited. And somewhere beyond frost-edged night, a roar of ancient wings too long silent. But for now, under a sky clear of smoke for the first time in many moons, two souls forged by winter and fire faced north together, unafraid of any dawn that dared break before them.